Well, let me start by saying that it's unique. From the start, we had one main goal in mind: go big or go home. So with the attitude of a predator, we went hunting for the best of components, leaving the others to scavenge from the leftovers. To put it simply, we had created a compressed molding machine with a conveyor belt and a completely automated car. Some may say that the system we had created is over-engineered. Just to clear it out, it's not over-engineered, it's perfectly engineered. Let me stop you there. Okay, I just need to say something. The first few videos had terrible camera view, so you can only see me working on the whole Lego system, but it gets better. Trust me, it really gets better, so don't deduct a mark for this. Sir, please don't. Okay, let's continue. Hello, welcome to our video. This was the first lesson where we were allowed to play with Lego Maker AMS systems. So, let's start off with what's happening in the frame. We'll leave the compression machine to last because I have a lot to talk about that. But I would like to start off with Jaden. Jaden at the back there, you can see, not very clearly, but it's enough. You can see that he is making a conveyor belt. His conveyor belt design was amazing. It's held up to this day. It's just perfect. He had an immaculate design in mind, and he clearly outdid himself making that conveyor belt. On the left side, you can see that Venanti is making a automated car. She had a great design in mind. What she was making, it was truly a great design. But what ended up happening? Someone stole it, and yeah, I had to redesign it. Anyway, let's speak about mine. You saw the build at the start. I was building the frame and everything, putting those gears. My basic idea was, it was taken from the Tesla video, honestly. The Tesla video had the massive machine, compression machine that was used to compress out all the parts. I wanted the same idea, to make a piston-like design that goes up and down, but the kits we had at school did not have pistons, so I had to come up with a ladder-like idea, which would go up, but it won't smash the press back down. It would just kind of drop it. So what ended up happening, I scratched this idea completely and I made a new one. But for the next few lessons, I tried making this one work, but then I just ended up making a new thing. Let's continue. Well, welcome back to day 2 of building. Well, the camera's pretty bad still. The field of view is pretty awful. We just continued building our system. I kind of took apart things to make sure that they all work slightly nicely, and then we remeasured everything so that the conveyor belt actually fits through the compressor. Venanti just kept on working on the cart, and guess what? Someone hit our camera, which put everything back to frame. Yay! Welcome back to lesson 3 of Lego making. So at the back there, Jaden just continued on making his conveyor belt and making it functional. And then I came up with a completely new design for the compression machine, obviously, because the first one wasn't working very well. Anyway, this was a more robotic arm that compressed clay onto a base, and then the base will kind of, in informal words, flick off the clay onto the cart. So in a full lesson, I made the whole new design and then coded a bit in order to make sure everything is functional. So then I was thinking about ideas on how I would make a base that flicks off the clay. I used a robotic arm, as you can see there, and attached it to the base, and then attached a robotic arm to the actual compression machine that would kind of just flick off the clay at the end. And welcome back to Lego Masters Lesson 4. In today's lesson, Jaden made his conveyor belt functional by coding it and making it look aesthetically pleasing. Venanti was away. And Saksham, which is me, I took my compressor apart to insert a new motor, which controlled the base flying off and the clay flicking off. We did come in a problem in this lesson. The clay kept on getting stuck within the holes of the Legos, so I tried using paper as the base and the bottom so the clay wouldn't stick, but that wasn't working. So we went on a bit of a trip to get baking paper.
3, 2, 1. We're going on a trip in our favorite rocket ship, zooming through the sky. Little Einstein, climb aboard, get ready to explore. There's so much to find. Little Einstein.
And we are back. Jaden came back and started working on the clay dropper, which drops clay onto the conveyor belt that will be put onto the compressing machine. I utilized the baking paper on both the base and the compressing arm so that clay doesn't get stuck. You can also see that I'm putting some sort of bracket on the front of the compressing base. That's just there because I want to have the clay to get flung into the base or into the little bracket so that it always lands at one spot. Well, today's Multiculturals Day. Rather than being out in the crowd, me and Jaden decided to come in and peacefully work on our robots. There's nothing much that we did today, kind of just reinforced everything. One new thing that I did do though is rather than having the base get flung up and drop the clay onto the cart, I permanently joined it there so that the base sticks on and it kind of flicks off the piece of clay using friction. That's honestly all I did with the compressor and what Jaden did with his conveyor belt. Jaden went on and started measuring everything, measuring the height, etc. And I started designing prototype 2 of the cart as our first one was stolen. This prototype was a lot more smarter. Rather than having a hard code, we had a sensor involved instead that followed a black line that we would later make on. As you can see there, Jaden is also working with a flat pieces of base and he's adding some spaces. That's basically going to go under the conveyor belt so that the conveyor belt can get some height, so it can be easier for us to drop the clay onto the base of the compressor. Here's a quick look at what the cart looks like. That's a simple cart. It comes by docks in front of the compression machine, and that's the compression machine. That's the overall conveyor belt so far. Like last lesson, this lesson was pretty boring as well. We just kind of reinforced everything, made sure everything works, got the coding right, and just tweaked a bunch of things. Nothing special, so yeah, here's the time lapse.
Look at this dude.
Hey, so again, as of this lesson, there was nothing new. Just kind of maintaining everything, making sure everything works fine. A problem that came by was that MacBooks aren't the best with the software. so I decided to move on to a desktop, which is painful, but oh well. Anyway, the cable wasn't working very well with the brick because the brick was just it wasn't the best brick. So I ended up removing the brick in on the next couple of lessons and then remaking it. And welcome to lesson 10. So some footage was lost, but here's me testing the code. Test 1, fail. So I made up a code at my own and it completely failed. Second test, success. The code is quite intricate. I'll go through the code more towards the end. This is another attempt, but at a larger scale. And welcome to lesson 10, getting towards the end there. In the video you can see the cart looks completely different, well, somewhat different. I had to put the wheels inside because the wheels outside kept on hitting the barrier, and now we don't have a basket. We have two forks that carry a basket that already sits in front of the compressor. In this video, nothing much happened. Jaden and Vinanti were kind of just tweaking up the measurements, making sure everything worked, where I was sending an email to Sir. Then someone said that our compressor was too over-engineered, so we decided to challenge ourselves, take away one brain and take away the extra motor that was just sitting there as support. So I did that, which made life really hard, but at the end made it work. That's about it for this period. Next period we came back and then we did some more tweaking. We wanted to do a more larger scale version testing, so we put up a track and kept on trying to see if the thing works, and yes, we did make it work at the end. It just wasn't very consistent, so we had to make that work. Towards the end here you can see that I am about to play with the cart. I'm not playing with it. I realized that we needed multiple sensors to go at full marks, so I started adding a safety feature on the cart, which will be demonstrated in the further video. Lesson 12, a final lesson. Yeah, well, this lesson was just getting everything corrected, making sure everything is perfect for our next lesson, which will be after, to just do a bunch of testing and make sure it works perfectly fine. You can see Vinanti and Jaden just keeping everything up to date, and I was somewhere. Okay, so this is where we start testing. This is an angle from the top where we started testing. You can see in a couple of seconds that the machine will start running, and then as soon as it drops the clay onto the basket, the cart will come by, pick it up and leave. Here's a few seconds of it. Here's another angle. Back so you can see how what the robot sees. If you're noticing, the wheels are in a different placement now. I had to do that because the previous one wasn't stable enough, but keeping it this way keeps it a lot more stable. Here's another angle for it. Yeah, in this clip you can clearly see that we are really excited that it worked. Okay, now this is the safety feature I was talking about earlier. So I added a touch sensor on the front so that every time the robot comes in contact with a wall or a person standing in a work zone, it will completely stop the robot and it will lead to reverse and then sound an alarm. As you can see here, here's a demonstration. Stops. Waits there for a couple of seconds, it reverses out, an alarm. Alarm. Perfect. We're done. Like that, but it's touched it now. That means it's going to completely stop, reverse up, so that's in place, alarm. Welcome back to our podcast. We're here to discuss about our compressing machine with Jaden and Vinanti. Welcome, guys.
Hello.
Hi. Okay, so Jaden was in charge of. Jaden, would you want to tell us what parts you were in charge
I
of?
was responsible for the conveyor belt and the clay actuator.
Okay, and section.
My side was to work with the compressing machine and the cart.
And I oversaw the building, and then I also worked with the clay and trying to get it to fall onto our machine properly and work with the Lego pieces. So, Jaden, you worked mainly with the conveyor belt. In your opinion, what was one of the difficulties of working with clay?
Working with clay? Well, when we actually placed it onto the actuator, as you can see, this piece of, baking paper is here, purely for the reason of we tried to make it so that way the clay wouldn't stick to the conveyor belt, because frequently when we would stack them all together, either they'd all stick together and become one big thing and fall off together, or they wouldn't fall off because of that, or they'd get stuck to the walls or the actual conveyor belt itself. So it would frequently screw up. So the whole point of this baking paper is to try and reduce that, but it never ended up working with multiple. So as you can see in the video, we're only using one piece of clay so as to reduce the chance of multiple getting stuck together. So yeah.
As long as it works, it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
So how many places on our robot, on the AMS, do we have baking paper?
Baking paper. Well, originally the entire actuator was lined with baking paper, but since we decided to only stick with one piece of clay for the final cut, the actual lever for the conveyor, for the actuator, is the only part that actually has the baking paper. The rest of it is pure Lego.
The The second part where we use baking paper was on the top part of the compressing machine, just up here, so that
For the same reason.
yeah, same reason, so it just doesn't get stick between the holes.
Mm-hmm.
So if I remember Jaden built the conveyor belt with the clay actuator, and Saxon built the arm. Now today morning when I came in, it was all one piece. What inspired this change?
Oh, well, just to make transportation easier, the actuator and the conveyor belt are all stuck together via multiple pieces of Lego on the ground. You can't really see it from that angle, and we're not going to bother turning it. And the compressing machine is also connected to the bottom parts of the conveyor belt, as you can see down here. I hope I'm pointing to the right thing.
Yeah.
And so that way it all moves together. And also, as the compressor used its arm to actually compress the clay, it would frequently start shuffling back and forward when it's moving up and down. And so it would throw the aim off of the conveyor belt, so we'd have to rectify that by holding them in place.
Okay, that's a great answer. Let's go back to the actuator because we're working in a really.
Oh, God.
Let's just add a laugh. Let's just add laughter there.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh my God.
Let's go back to the actuator. Where did you find so many long cables?
Well,
Would you like me
great
to answer
question.
that?
Yeah, you should do that.
So they are all found by us in many different kits. Whereas this morning when we came in school, all of them were missing. So I had to go digging for them in many kits. Took me around 10 minutes to go through different kits and find all the long cables.
It was disgusting, but luckily he was able to liberate them from the people that sought to absolutely sabotage us. Let's all give a round of applause. Round of applause for Saxon here.
Thanks, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Can someone explain to me how exactly the clay actuator is working? Because I remember Saxon complaining about the lack of pistons. So how did you overcome that?
Well, I should answer this. So, yeah, as you can tell, Lego Mindstorm kits don't come with pistons. Should fix that. And the way that we had to overcome this
the school just doesn't pay for them.
Well, no, they're like $40 a piston, and it's ridiculous.
Exactly. The school doesn't
Our
pay for
school's
them.
kids are going to break them. The
It's
first
not even
day
funny.
they're there,
Mate, we can't afford aircon. What makes you think we're going to record a little
We have
piston?
aircons now.
Now.
We do have aircons.
It took 5 years and for us to actually leave.
Just as we're about to
we
leave.
can't even enjoy them.
Yeah,
Anyway.
basically, it's winter time.
Anyway, the point is, to overcome this, the actuator, the motor is within, it's concealed underneath all the Lego. It has a motor inside, and the whole point of this motor is that it turns. And on the end of this motor is like a sort of, I guess you could call it like a thumb or something sticking out that's like this.
So it's like a pedal.
Yeah, in a way. And the way it works is, originally it points down, and then I've programmed it so after 4 seconds, it will turn around like this. And this piece here is actually on its own. It's independent. So as the thing is underneath, as it's pointing down, it will turn and push it up, and then it will push it down via the same mechanism. And so that's how this thing moves up and down. And so the whole point, the vision was that the clay would slide down, this would get pushed up over onto the conveyor belt to go off, and then the next one would come and so forth. But due to the various difficulties, only one clay was able to be used, which is very sad.
I'm quite
Sorry,
impressed by
Venanti,
your
I have one
thinking.
question.
Yeah.
How did you have the baking paper stuck onto the independent piece?
Well, it's very simple. We've basically just gotten some duct tape, looped it around so that way it sticks on all surfaces, and just stuck it to the end. It's magic.
The
pretty
DIY
smart.
double-sided tape. I'm
Exactly,
Yeah,
you
it's
know.
pretty smart.
A-level
It's
thinking.
They don't teach you this at
outstanding.
Bunnings.
Good old Bunnings.
Exactly.
Okay, so once the clay is dropped off the actuator, it goes onto our conveyor belt. How do you ensure it doesn't fall off either side of the belt?
Well, this was a issue that actually stood quite a bit. Originally, there were 5 wheels within the conveyor belt. There's
5 wheels.
5 because there was one at each end for each motor,
And 3 in the middle.
and then 3 in the middle, all spaced out equally. But the problem originally was that the middle one was higher than the other 4, and so what that would happen is as the clay moves along the conveyor belt, because of like a little hill that it had to overcome, it wouldn't move past that. So to rectify this, I originally started going a bit crazy with walls. So that's what all these parts here are. It's just walls, really. And obviously they're in various different locations because the height of the conveyor belt has changed so drastically and so frequently. And so originally I just decided, you know what? we're running out of pieces because people keep stealing them. So the way to fix this is I'm just going to remove the fifth wheel in the middle. And once I did that, I looked down the sights of the conveyor belt and realized, wow, it actually is all pretty smooth and simple. It's all flat. It lines up. And yeah, so that's how the conveyor belt stops the clay from falling off.
That's a pretty good mechanism.
Yeah, I remember it was a pretty lengthy process as well. Like there was an entire lesson we just sat down and we tried to take off all the unnecessary
Yeah.
bits that didn't add anything to it.
Exactly.
We had to,
Now,
like,
obviously,
clean it
a lot
out.
of effort went into this. Yeah,
Exactly.
great
yeah,
job.
yeah,
Great job,
yeah.
Jaden.
Yeah.
Okay, so once the clay has fallen onto the conveyor belt and it's moving, how did you decide at which speed it should be moving? Did you
which
go
speed?
Too fast? Did you go too slow?
Put your mic closer.
So originally, the way it worked was the motors, the code, it's set. You can set the speed for the motors by a percentage, and because of the layering underneath to hold the whole system together, the tracks would frequently trip over themselves at 100% speed. So I had to under dampen.
That's right. Under dampen.
No, over dampen.
Are you sure?
Over dampen makes it slower.
Good.
Dampening makes it slower.
Exactly.
Over dampening is
Over damping makes it too slow. So I had to
Give it a second, guys.
So I had to dampen the system. And the way to dampen the system is I set the speed to 75%. 75% seemed to work out very well. Very rarely was there a trip up as it tried to come underneath. But then when we actually got to the final phase of trying to time the clay dropping and hitting the conveyor belt, we couldn't set more than a second increment between the actuator and the compressor. So the only other way to rectify this was to set the different speed of the conveyor belt. So in the end, we set it at 73%, both motors, one going clockwise, one going anti-clockwise, and that's how the conveyor belt is moving.
I will show the codes to everyone in the screen during the video, guys. You will see the codes later on.
Mm.
So as we can see on the model, there are a fair amount of parts on here, but every single part has a use, right? Like there's nothing just lying on there.
Of course.
Well, in the beginning, when we
As you can see from
We
the glorious
in the
image,
did
beginning,
have
as you
some
get in the back,
issues.
you see the blue lines.
I would hesitate to call them issues.
Yeah, there weren't
Those
issues.
blue lines were essential, and that kettle on top of the actuator was precisely what we needed.
Oh, it wasn't like waterproofing.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I
waterproofing.
mean, the workers, they aren't here anymore, but who the hell doesn't want a cup of tea while they're trying to operate one of the most
exactly,
complicated
right,
systems?
yeah.
Exactly. Not to mention the various antennas,
Yeah.
including the one that is currently on the car.
It needs for signals. Like
Exactly.
You need, like when you're sitting in the
What
home
driver?
base,
What driver doesn't want to be watching TV while they're trying to drive down the
Well,
road?
that too.
Exactly. You know, they have
And-
they have a whole thing about catching people on their phones while driving. And
Yeah.
They didn't say anything about TVs.
Yeah.
And if they implement TVs, I'm going to bring a smart fridge around with me.
Oh mate, Samsung smart fridge cannot go wrong. with
That,
those.
they also did that in the HSC. They say don't bring in any, computers or phones. They didn't
Yeah,
say they didn't say smart
Smart
fridges.
fridges, that's
so I'm going to
right.
bring in a smart fridge into the HSC. You can bet your bottom dollar I will, assuming assuming I can save up however much money they cost.
I'm
and
pretty sure they're
probably-
like $7,000.
Yeah, probably.
I think they're pretty, yeah,
Yeah,
because
they're
you
like
have
they're
like
expensive. You're
I w-
basically
you're
paying for
buying
like
digital friend.
I would
and a fridge
argue a
in one.
bank loan for a 99 ATAR is a good idea.
yeah, I guess. Anyway, second part you can see in the photo is the compressing bit. There's a second brick that doesn't exist anymore, as you can see, because over engineering is a problem apparently.
Exactly. You don't want your thing to do exactly what it wants to do
Yeah,
at the maximum efficiency.
yeah, exactly.
That's
so
such a crime.
I took the brick off.
I find it pretty interesting that you guys could eliminate an entire brick. Can somebody walk me through that process?
So, the
Very
original
simple. It's called more cables.
yes, there's a lot of cables.
Well, it's just adding more cables. This one originally just had two, and it connected to the motor and that
Yeah.
other motor. This originally wasn't here.
We were
to begin with.
supposed to use a third brick for that, weren't we?
That was the plan.
That was the plan.
because at the very beginning we took all the bricks.
yeah,
No one said we couldn't.
See,
and
as-
we were the
as
only
you
ones
saw-
smart enough to think of that.
as you saw earlier in the video, we were the predators. We were the alpha predators in the jungle.
Exactly. We were the predators. I'm the one from the first one. He's the second one, the city hunter, because that's a shiter movie. So that's the way it works.
Anyway,
So yeah, originally the way it worked was this was going to be a third brick. Our original sketch, we probably don't have that anymore. But the original sketch was that this was going to be separate. If anything, it was actually going to be hanging overhead.
Oh,
and
that,
dispensing.
yeah, I remember we were trying to work that out.
Yeah.
It did not work. It
As
was
same as your thing has a brick. As is it in that photo?
Yeah, it's in the photo. It used to have a brick which
Yeah.
controlled it like separately.
Yes, but
now, see, even in the photo, you can see the cable travels from like the motor to the I guess one brain we used. That was just there for support
Yeah.
at that stage.
But,
So
but then we realized, well,
Yeah.
to sort of
even using bricks or motors for support is apparently over engineering. You know, just trying to make life easier, but
well, we realized the way to correct this is to just
eliminate them.
exactly
You
get
have
rid
to
of them.
basically take everything off.
Someone
and then-
started making an argument that the brick was more structural,
Yeah,
but that's not how it works, is it?
yeah, that was my fault.
Exactly. You know, I'm gonna.
Just for context for our viewers, the diagram that everybody's referring to is actually a photo of one of our earlier models of this exact AMS.
Yeah, if you want to just stand up and point out what you're looking at.
She can't. The headphones aren't that long.
Ah,
But hers are the longest. I
Another
suppose.
issue we will have to overcome.
Exactly. With
Yeah.
a bigger budget. Anyway,
let's
Okay,
continue. Let's
so-
continue.
So far, we were up to the clay and the conveyor belt with the speed down. How exactly did you work out that when the clay drops off the conveyor belt, it's going to land on the arm?
well, that's what math class is for, is it not?
Yeah, that's right. That's
Year
nice.
8 Pythagoras. The first time I've ever had to use it.
Okay.
Granted,
calm
it was-
down.
granted
calm
it-
down.
bit of
Calm
Granted-
down.
error,
Granted,
like
it was still in
mathematical-
school. I've never had to use it outside of school.
Yeah. See,
Except
teachers,
for talking
teachers,
about
teachers
school.
think that like even to cross a road, we need to solve exponential equation. you know,
Exactly.
But sorry,
How did the chicken solve the logarithm function?
Who knows? Who knows? Anyway, before in the first model, it was a separate brick, and we timed it accordingly. But then,
Well, again, our original sketch said that the compressor was going to be overhead and would
Yeah.
crush it as
Yeah,
it moved
so
along. Kind of like Star
we'll
Wars.
talk about that once Jaden is finished with his parts when it's my turn. But originally, it was a completely different design. So timing was the best we could do.
Well, the way it worked, we just simply lined up the conveyor
trial
belt
and
with your platform on the end of
Yeah.
your conveyor belt.
well, we're more talking about how we timed it right. So
no, we're talking about how the hell this lands on there.
what are we talking about, Fanti?
We're talking about a bit of both, you know. I
Bit
think
of
the
both, bit of
timing
both.
is what. That's the same thing. What are you guys
Yeah.
arguing about?
Exactly.
See, in our group, there's no such thing as
You know,
Peace.
I was taught in specifically term 4 of 2020 that in
Oh,
a group
don't remind
you're meant
me
to
that you-
attack people
Yeah.
in your group. That's what I was told.
Yeah, we're supposed to attack people. You
Within
know,
the
there's
ar-
no such thing as solving an argument without attacking.
Exactly.
Wow.
Anyways,
Moving on.
Anyways, so now we're up to the clay falling off the conveyor belt and getting crushed by the arm. Exactly what is on the arm? What's on the end? What's the end effector? How's the arm running? You know.
let's talk about, before I get into this particular design, I want to talk about what the prototype was earlier. Earlier, it was supposed to be a more conventional compressor machine, which, you know, like a hydraulic press, has a piston that goes up and down straight rather than have an arm. But again, don't get pistons.
School budget.
Yeah, about that. So what I had to do was come up with an arm. So I put a just an arm motor that comes in the kit on the top and measured it accordingly so that it will go up and then smash back down. The first plan was to use some gears to have enough force to actually squish the clay, but turns out if I make the base heavy enough, it's got plenty of
Yes,
force.
'cause we were previously informed that these motors weren't strong enough. To
Yeah,
actually,
but they work. They
Yeah.
work. They hurt.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just put a motor on top and had the base strong enough in both sides. I actually for once used truss analysis from engineering to make the design, even though this isn't a truss, but it helps.
Yeah, so it's probably wrong.
I mean, it works.
Well, I just see a bunch of grey Lego pieces on this side. What exactly are they doing there? Is that a wall?
Yeah, that's a wall so that if, let's say, because before it was going at 100% speed,
Yeah, they would
they would
be too quick.
they'll be
and
too
they-
quick and fall off the edge. So
Exactly.
we needed somewhere to stop it. So putting a wall there was the best we could do.
Precisely.
Okay, so once the clay is crushed, how is it moved off the platform onto the rover?
Well, that's just
That's
that's
my
a hint of luck.
Well, yes, hint of luck in this system. It hasn't been
So-
it hasn't been enforced properly.
the
Let
arm-
me walk you through it.
Okay.
No. So the main idea is that there's a basket, or in normal workshop it'll be known as a pallet. the clay would land on the base, get squished, how it will.
Excuse
And
me.
then-
You can put that back.
Yes, please.
You can put that back.
We need that back.
Yeah, you can put that back.
Okay. Anyway,
Right there, right there.
with luck and physics, friction, it would kind of flick it off it'll flick it off into the pallet. It worked when we did it earlier. It's a bit.
We do have video evidence.
We do have
of
video
working.
evidence of it
Ignore
working.
section.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was
100% the first take.
Yep. Anyway, it would land in the basket, and the cart would follow its path, and it would be taken away.
Yeah. So, in essence, the arm has been programmed. That way, it crushes the clay at a hard enough.
Just hard enough force.
A hard enough force. That way, the clay sticks to the
top
the
of
roo-
to the top.
sticks to the roof of the compressor.
Yeah.
That way, it actually has the momentum to flick it off.
Yeah.
It's
A
sort
lot
of
of
Gravity
physics.
does the rest.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Gravity always wins.
luck.
Yeah.
Luck was the
All
main.
of them, trial and error. timing
Luck was
until we got it
luck was
just
a good
right.
friend.
Exactly. I had to go through every plus one, minus 1% to make sure that
Yeah,
it had
it's-
it stuck it to the conveyor belt to the compressor arm at enough force. That way,
Yeah.
by the time it lifts itself over the basket, it will fall off. If any harder, it will stick to it for a second longer, and it will fall off at the wrong spot. So that was a lot of trial and error. Which
Can I
was
can I
rather
just
annoying.
say it was supposed to be my job to code the compressing machine, but
But you're shit.
no. But considering we had to remove a brain, you had to take care
Yeah,
of that.
so
So,
I- we
thank
had
you
to-
so
we had-
much.
we had-
Thank you so much. Can we get a round of applause for Jaden?
We had to remove your brain
round of
and
applause.
add my brain because I'm a genius. That's the wrong button.
That's fine. That's fine. And because I got really busy with the rover because it kept on getting stolen.
Because Mars just landed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the
with the rover.
Perseverance.
Originally, I was in charge of building the rover. I built a nice little rover and I left
Yeah.
in the
Based off
classroom.
Suction's design, and then it got stolen.
and
Yeah.
it was-
See,
it
I was just
brutal,
playing
you know.
around, and we just ended up with my played up design.
Some
And
hooligans came in at the middle of the night.
We had maybe 3 or 4 rovers.
We had 4 prototypes of the
Yeah.
rover.
You know, if we were in America, we'd exercise our Second Amendment rights and just shoot whoever the hell stole the rover.
I mean, that would be pretty fun.
We'd
wouldn't
have
it? We should bleep this out.
No, we shouldn't. We shouldn't. There'd be 3 people to kill because our 3 rovers were stolen.
It's safe to say that our group was
One
furious.
rover was
It
stolen.
was actually quite
The
a major
second one
setback.
was destroyed, and the third and fourth one were just upgrades.
Were they?
Yeah.
Where's the third and fourth? There's
This
only
is the
one.
fourth one. The
Then where's
third
the
one
third
had
one?
the basket that was already connected, and then the fourth one was the basket
that's-
separated.
Yes, because you had to. You illegally took it home. That's right. You started
No, I
working on it.
didn't. I did not take it home, man. I just lost the footage.
Really?
it was
I have text messages.
No,
of-
no, no, you don't. I don't know what you.
Our dear viewers shouldn't be lied to.
Anyways,
Jaden, I would like
originally-
you to. I would like if you put your phone away, please.
I remember in the rover, the first model I built, the basket was added onto the front. So currently, I see the basket has been taken off.
Yeah.
Exactly what went into that decision.
Okay. Time.
No.
Time was of the essence, and
What are you on about? The original one had the basket on it.
yes, it did, but
It did, but we couldn't get it.
but
to
we
line
couldn't
up,
get it
remember?
to work properly. Remember, having it to stop there and then start like reversing
Yeah.
and follow it around.
It wasn't the stopping that was the issue. It was when it would turn,
stopping and
it
the
would-
lining. Yes,
Mm.
It would like wipe out half our AMS
Yeah. So-
as the basket turned.
yeah.
Yeah. As it
That's the
turned,
thing.
it's
Its turning radius was we couldn't have the turning radius to be really
The
small
wheels-
because it would go off the track.
Yeah, the wheels are too far back, so
Yeah.
the angle of turning would have to be too great for the car to actually handle. And if we had it at the correct angle for it to handle, it would start crashing into the front, particularly in this
yeah,
spot,
and here
and
this
that would
spot
start
as well.
pushing everything, and it would probably fall off the table
Yeah.
had no one been there,
Yeah.
and that would have been disastrous.
That's another reason why the wheels are so awkwardly placed.
Exactly. You can see in the footage that you'll be running right now
Yeah.
that the reason the wheels are like that is that if that outer wheel,
Yeah.
for me, would be on the outside, as
Yeah,
it
it would
drove
hit the
past here, it would
edge,
also
yeah.
clip the edge here.
I tried putting both the wheels inside as well, but that wouldn't balance very well. It would keep on just rocking back and forth. So this was the best we could do.
Exactly.
Okay, so talking about the rover now, since the basket was a component of the rover, we have 2 actuators and 2 sensors.
Yeah.
Saksham, do you want to tell us about the two sensors you used?
So originally there was supposed to be no sensor. It was supposed to be a hard code, but then some smart bird told us that we needed sensors. That bird may be Venanti,
That bird's called the marking criteria.
and that. Anyways, so there's two sensors that are involved in our motor, in our rover. Sorry.
Racist.
The main sensor that we're using is, well, they're both main, but this is probably the most important one. What?
Maybe.
Maybe. that's
Both
the-
sensors are equally important. I think the safety
Exactly.
feature.
Yeah.
We don't
if you
discriminate.
We have
Yeah.
safety feature as well, which I'll talk in a second.
We judge
I mean, if you
sensors by
have
the
Shut
con-
up, mate.
humans
Just shut up. Just
and
shut up. Go
robots
take your conveyor
in the
belt
I have a
away.
dream.
same-
where we judge conveyor belts by
Jaden,
their
what happened last
process and
time when you
output.
said I have a dream?
By the way, they
Jaden.
handle the
Jaden.
inputs and outputs
Jenna, we
rather
should-
than the content of their character.
security.
Security.
Anyways, so the color sensor, I created a code that follows a black line, and the black line that we used was a track made of electrical tape that we laid on the track. You saw in the previous videos that it was following a black line in order to get to the basket and then carrying it away to the docking bay.
Wait. Somebody tell me why black tape? I remember we had pink tape, we had grey. Like,
So
The way that
reason-
the way that the color sensor works is it works off.
there's two ways it works. I'll explain both.
Okay.
One method of the color sensor to work is that it senses a color and then it goes.
oh my god!
No,
really?
listen, no. You don't understand. Like,
I'll do it.
no,
I'll do
no,
it.
listen,
It
no.
works based
So-
off
It works off light reflection.
Yes,
the intensity of light reflection.
So
We me-
before I tried making the code, I used it to sense a color, and if it sensed red, it would just go, but it wouldn't know where to go because it wasn't following a line. Then I used light intensity things. Jeez, man.
Let me
I
explain
get
the system the way section
So
works.
we measured
I
that
get
Play
the,
bullied-
goes
you
in,
get
and because
bullied
it's
too much.
automated, it automatically
we measured
gets
that the
manufactured
intensity
and the
of
system works,
the
and
intensity of
that's
a
how
light
Section would
reflection
say it.
of a single white table that's commonly found in the school
It's about
is
40.
65.
No, that's all the way on the edge. Before the part.
That is a table. That was
No,
the
that's
table.
all the way
think
on the
65 is more
six-
feasible because white
No,
is
yeah.
very
65
reflective
was
No,
the
no, no,
table,
no.
mate.
Yes, 65 is the table.
Yeah, that's what I'm
65 is the table when when the sensor's purely on the table.
Exactly.
The tape, the black tape itself has
Black tape,
intensity.
because of the high contrast between the black and the white.
It has a 7 to 9 intensity.
Exactly.
But in order for it to for our rover to be really accurate on the path and not wander off, we have to keep the sensor half the sensor has to be sensing black, half the sensor has to be sensing white. So that puts it at around 40. That's what I'm trying to explain. Because if it's purely on the table, it can go anywhere.
Did you just say that 65 minus 9 was 40?
No, I'm not talking about that. Hey, if you check the intensity again on the black tape and on white, so like add black and white next to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And if you put this
Continue, please.
and if you put the sensor right on the middle of them, so let's say this side is white, which is a table, and this is a black tape. Jaden, you need to stop. When you put the sensor right in the middle, it senses approximately 40 percent intensity. But if you just put it on white, that's 60%. So it will waddle a lot more to go back and forth into the black line. So you have to
waddle wah.
waddle. So that's the reason why we had to use the color sensor, and I had to put the intensity fairly low so it follows a lot more accurately, I guess.
But I think the color sensor was actually a pretty good move because we originally didn't have an exact path laid out. So every time
No.
we had to change the path, all we had to do was change the tape.
Yeah, and just check through that we had the intensity lined up properly.
Yeah, because our system is huge. Every time we had to film anything, we'd have to get everything, connect up tables, then we'd put under tape.
Yeah.
And we'd have to it was a big setup process
I
every
think
time.
I think I had to run home twice to
Yeah,
get tape.
we had to
Every
have a pretty
time, yeah,
flexible
yeah.
system.
And then we stole it from Mr. Simpson.
Oh yeah,
Then it got
I
lost.
gave him
We did lose the tape. That was stressful.
I bought him a new tape and I
We
gave it to him.
Bought
It's fine.
some, and then we found it after we bought the new ones.
I
of
gave him a
course.
brand new tape. It's fine.
Good.
We did go through quite a lot of tape.
I think 2 rolls.
Yeah, we did.
2 rolls.
There's a lot of tape in the bin. We just killed about 5 turtles.
Yeah. Anyway, let's talk about this safety feature or the touch sensor we have. Now, many groups that we also are working on their AMS systems, they did not incorporate this, and we thought it would be a good idea to
No one
talk
likes
about.
to be safe.
Yeah, no one likes to be safe.
It's not
and-
cool to be safe.
Yeah.
because in a real world situation,
You have to think of some sort of
people are going
safety.
to be around there. You won't have
It's
just a robot.
there
running
has to be a
itself.
human there. You cannot rely on pure automation.
What are you on about, mate?
Yet.
Yet. It's
We're
still
working
too
on it.
early. It's still too early.
Are you proposing to wipe out a majority of the jobs, thus ruining the economy?
It is happening though. As harsh it is happening.
You're ruining the economy.
I mean, am I wrong though?
Circling back, a safety feature currently with today's technology, like we have people in the factory. We can't
Yeah.
have rovers running around randomly.
Yeah. let's say
Well, you know,
in a scenario where a rover gets off track and starts going in its own direction, if it goes to hit a wall or if it goes to hit anything really that's in front of him, the safety sensor it's just a simple touch sensor, and at every time it's touched, the rover knows to completely cut off the system and wait where it is for a couple of seconds, and then it will reverse up just enough so the pallet is left alone or any sort of damage is left alone, and then it will sound a really loud alarm for continuous couple of minutes.
exactly.
It doesn't sound like that, but that's a good representation.
Yes, yeah, it's even worse.
So we had to make sure that safety was incorporated, and the marks were given to us for using two sensors.
Precisely. Because the conveyor belt, actuator, and the compressing
Yeah.
arm don't have sensors
Yeah,
because we forgot about them.
basically. So that was the whole process. This cart was probably it's the only prototype that works very well. The other two did not have sensors. They didn't work as well, and we couldn't hard code it very well. The reason we couldn't hard code it as well is we couldn't have it to stop in front of the base on time. So yeah, we had to worry about that.
Just a question. Outside of the sensors, how come we did not go back into our other part of the system and add sensors?
Time of the
Time
essence.
constraints,
Yeah,
yeah.
time constraints.
And
That's the main.
we couldn't really be bothered.
No, the bothering wasn't a thing. I'm
No,
I
pretty.
think
it's-
we would have been bothered
no,
if
no,
we had
we-
the parts as well. Like sensors weren't exactly just lying around.
Yeah.
We didn't have stuff to connect it.
That
we didn't have
too.
a whole
We
lot
were
of pieces.
frequently getting robbed from because
Yeah. A
apparently
whole lot.
we were done by week 1 apparently. So
Yeah.
you know we were just
Dunno.
everyone was just taking all the stuff from us. I was proposing we go on like an actual crusade,
Yeah.
like they did in Jerusalem. And we just start, we run in, we start wiping everyone out.
Sure.
But apparently,
Assuming we had extra time though, and all the pieces we wanted,
then we would have
which
gone on a
sensors-
crusade.
No, no.
almost. Which sensors would we have added into the system, provided
It
that we
would have
didn't
been-
any
Probably
constraints?
some sort
It
of.
would have been good for to have an ultrasonic sensor.
Yeah,
Yeah,
round about
I
like
agree.
Yeah,
here.
like right about the middle.
That way,
so
as it senses the piece of clay
Look
go
like
by, it would
it
tell
will-
this
it will
to
tell
drop
them-
another piece.
drop
and then
another
it would also
piece.
tell the conveyor belt to move up,
Yeah.
crash it, and go out.
Yeah, that would have
and then
taken a
keep
lot of
going
the
like
guesswork and the timing.
yeah,
out of
that
it.
would have been a lot quicker
Yeah,
to do.
if
Honestly,
we had
Um,
another week, maybe.
Yeah, I mean,
Technically, we did get another
we
week.
did get another week, but
But-
we wanna
but-
play it safe.
But can't be asked.
That too.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway, so back to the rover. We've got the two actuators. We
Yeah.
talked about the interesting wheel placement.
They had to be done that way.
Yes, they did have to be done. We tried doing it the normal way and we almost knocked our AMS off the table and we thought never again.
Yeah, that was a
Mm.
scary day.
Speaking of dropping AMS off the edge of a table,
I apologize. You know who you are. I apologize. I
So
devoted
sad.
my help to them though.
he was yelling something when he did it.
What? Why are you
Sorry
playing?
about what it
No,
was.
it wasn't that.
You
it was
said-
something
you
worse.
shouted that-
And back to the rover. I see it has two.
middle of an evacuation.
Shut up, mate.
Parent-teacher
her,
interview now.
let her talk.
I see the rover has two prongs instead of the basket, like what the basket used to be. Now we have like
That's
is
to
it two
yeah, so
protruding
that's
again-
to create a
pieces?
fork in the road.
Yeah. Again, we couldn't. I couldn't even with the sensors. I wasn't able to have the cart stop in front of the base so that it could collect the clay and then go off. I was having troubles with making the code work properly, so I wanted to keep it as simplistic as possible.
Yeah, because we could have timed that.
Yeah,
but
I
the thing
could have
is,
timed it, but
we
it's
moved around this AMS so much, and
It-
it wasn't always like in
it's-
one position.
yeah,
like
it's-
you
Yeah.
can't time it.
it's not one of those things that work as it is. It will work it's just works independent. It's basically got its own brain.
Well, that's because based off those prongs, that's where the basket originally
that's where
was.
the basket would be. So
And
what we
so
thought,
I had to design a basket that way. This sort of just picks it
Yeah.
up and takes it away.
yeah. So he designed Jaden, as he said, he designed a nice pallet that sits there. So like in a real world scenario, if he had any sort of
Like a
Like-
forklift.
like a forklift. Yes, that's a good way to put it. A forklift.
Except this one doesn't move up and down.
Yeah, it kind of just grabs it and goes off, which also works. Like
Which
it's
is
moving a pallet around.
Precisely the point of
Yeah.
a forklift.
Okay, so once it's grabbed it and gone off, where exactly is it taking?
It's taking to the docking bay, and
Uh-huh.
then once it's at the docking bay, it will stop and then come back
I
around.
think in the
Undisclosed
report we have
location.
called it point P. I forgot why. I just said yellow random letter and somebody yelled P, so that's the point.
No, it's called the docking bay.
No, the point P. Docking bay. Inside the docking bay, they have.
Oh
particular
yes,
points,
right. Yeah. That's right.
You
Sorry.
imbecile.
No, it's actually just got one big docking
Yeah,
bay.
Hey,
exactly.
bro.
Right. This is disastrous.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's our system from start to finish. Do we have any other comments? Anything we missed?
It was
yes.
definitely an
Have you gone
effort
through
to
the
make
entire
all
list?
of this.
Yeah, we've gone through the entire list of everything we wanted
There's
to talk
probably
about.
stuff for listening.
You had to make this taller as well, right?
Yeah.
That was
So
another thing.
originally, in the earlier videos that you'll see, the conveyor belt around about up to here, everything below didn't exist. The reason
Yeah.
being is because the conveyor belt, the height of the normal one was actually it was too small for the Well, actually, to be fair, it was in line. So, like, say this is the platform for the compressing arm, it would fall on, but due to the small height and because we can't make it any faster, it would land here. Conveyor arm would just be in this area. So, in order to give it sort of a projectile motion, to increase the range, because as we know from everyone doing physics in projectile motion, the equation for a range is the horizontal force multiplied by the time in the air. So to increase both of those, to increase the time in the air, we just had to give it height. That way it would fall further. And so therefore it would have a better chance of landing in the middle. And so that's also why the actuator is higher, because obviously it has to be higher above the conveyor
Yeah.
belt to dispense it. That's also why the conveyor belt is not higher. That way it has a smaller platform to land on.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's honestly about it.
Everything else that you see is purely structural. Removing a piece will result in you being hunted down.
Probably.
I really did try. That's actually as simple as we could get it.
Yeah, it's as simple as you can get.
Yeah, because
Nothing else.
these things seem stupid, but that's because there's a piece
It's
in here connecting
it's
it to
holding
this.
it down. Yeah.
Those blue wires would have been absolutely amazing. Same as the kettle. I'm still disappointed about that. But aside from that,
Anyways, guys, I think we should end it here. It's getting pretty late. So thank you again for joining into our podcast. I was joined by Vinanti and Jaden, myself, Saksham. Thank you.